story of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead is a very well-known story. It's also a story that gives us an amazing insight into the heart of God and to the heart of God as it's revealed in His Son, Jesus Christ. You, I'm sure, are familiar with the story. If not, you'll perhaps have read it in preparation for this study of how Jesus is told that Lazarus is sick, and then he finds out that Lazarus has died, and he goes to the home of Mary and Martha, and of course there's initially this question in their minds as to why Jesus didn't come sooner, why he delayed. And Jesus, if you had been here, you could have healed Lazarus, he wouldn't have died. What's going on? And there seems to be all this confusion, lots of questions. And then of course Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. He goes to the tomb. Lazarus has been dead already for a number of days, and everybody is just they're incredulous that Jesus would even attempt this kind of miracle, and yet he calls forth Lazarus, and Lazarus comes back to life. In this story, Jesus reveals himself as the resurrection and the life. He has this dialogue, if you like, with Martha, and he probes to find out what her faith really is and what she really believes. And Jesus states that he's the resurrection and the life, and he asks her if she believes this, and so on and so forth. And then there's a similar kind of conversation with Mary. What does it mean when Jesus says that he's the resurrection and the life? How does that apply to us? We can see how it applied in a very practical, very powerful way in Mary and Martha's case, and in Lazarus' case, as he was the one who was on the receiving end of Christ's resurrection power. When Jesus says he is the resurrection and the life, it becomes clear to us from the text that at one level he is talking about the last day. He's talking about when history comes to an end, when this world comes to an end, that those who have believed in him will be raised up, and that we will come back to life, and that Jesus will raise us up in the last day. This is a theme that comes up again and again in the Gospel of John, that when this life comes to an end, that if we have trusted Jesus, if we have believed him, and we can be certain that we will be raised up and that we will spend eternity in God's presence. So when Jesus refers to himself as the resurrection and the life, he is talking in the long term. He's talking about what he is able to do and what he does for those who believe in him. It's a promise of resurrection, and it's an assurance that we will be raised to life when this life has ended. But secondly, this revelation of the resurrection and the life is something that has an application now. Jesus says that we will live even though we die. He says that that this resurrection power that he has is something that's applicable right now, and we see that certainly in the case of Lazarus. God's resurrection power is available to us. Jesus makes that kind of power available to us, just as he made it available to Mary and Martha and to Lazarus. But we also see in this passage something of the heart of Jesus when he comes into this picture of death, this scene of death and destruction as the resurrection and the life, because we find that Jesus, when he comes to Lazarus' tomb, when he sees Mary and Martha, Lazarus' sisters, grieving, we're told that he's filled with indignation. John 11:34 and 35. These words in the original language indicate that Jesus was more than upset when he wept. He was indignant. He was he was angry with what he saw happening around him. He wasn't angry with the sisters because they were grieving. That wasn't the focus of his anger at all. I think this is an indication that Jesus was angry at the havoc that Satan was causing in God's world, in the world that God had created. I think that's very important for us to know, that when Jesus sees what's happening in our lives and what's happening in this world, he's not sitting at a distance and feeling very ambivalent about things. He's not neutral in his emotions. He's not sitting in a way that's detached from our suffering. He enters into it. He's concerned about us. He's concerned about what we're going through. And he's angry with what Satan is doing. The Bible tells us in another place that the Son of Man was revealed to destroy the works of the devil. And that's what Jesus came to do. And throughout the Gospels, he is undoing the works of Satan. And we see that Jesus, as the resurrection and the life, is undoing the work of the accuser, of the liar, of the destroyer, of the stealer, the thief. He's undoing the work of the one who brings death and destruction, namely Satan. So again, in this passage, we have this picture of God revealed in Jesus as one who is concerned about us. He's concerned about what we're going through. He's concerned about what our families are going through. And he's not in any way detached from it. He hasn't forgotten us. He is there for us. I think a final thing to say as well is that when Jesus refers to himself as the resurrection and the life, it's not something that's simply applicable to the long-term future or even to the situation that Jesus was in with Mary and Martha and with Lazarus. And the New Testament takes up this theme, and Paul talks in 2 Corinthians 1 about God being the God who raises the dead. And Paul himself talks about the resurrection power of Christ in Philippians chapter 3. He says, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection, the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings, that I might become conformable to him and his suffering, that in some way I might come to know the power of the resurrection from the dead. Words to that effect. That's a little bit of a paraphrase on my part. But what Paul's saying here is he's saying we can know that resurrection power. Ephesians chapter 1, he talks about the power. Paul talks about the power that's available to us as being like the same power that raised Jesus from the dead. And that power is available to those who believe God. So Jesus as the resurrection and the life, Jesus' resurrection power is available to us today. He is alive. He has beaten death. He has come back to life. He's for us. He's concerned about us, and he makes his power available to us. I trust that as you study this amazing story, this very revealing story, that you will see God in a new way, that you will see the power of Christ in a new way. And I pray that you will know his resurrection power working in you and through you as you live for him every day.